Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today on this webinar. The title of the webinar, as you can see, is Selling to Business, Business to Business in the Digital Age. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Firstly, I'm a digital solutions advisor at Business Station. Business Station provides basically small business advice in the digital space, showing small businesses how they can use digital technology to promote and grow their business. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but also wanted to provide you a bit of background on my experience too. So in a previous career, predominantly in Sydney, I was a pretty successful sales specialist and business development manager for a range of large organizations, very large organizations, including some of the world's largest organizations. And at these locations or organizations, I ran or participated in bid teams, responding to tenders and requests for proposals and requests for quotations. Now, I didn't win them all, but I had a pretty good success rate. So some of those included, $1 million contracts with some of the world's largest organizations and some of Australia's largest organizations. So what I hope to do today is to show you with this insight and using digital platforms available today, show you how you can improve your chances of building better relationships with other business customers, but also being more successful in winning contracts with business customers. So let's look at the agenda, what I'm going to talk about today. So we'll just briefly touch on B2B sales, a bit of an overview of what it is and how it differs from business to consumer sales. I'll then talk about a range of things. So the importance of having an online presence, how you can attract potential customers to your business through inbound marketing. We'll also look at ways that you can target particular individuals in organizations through advertising and a range of other platforms. And then we'll also briefly touch on eCommerce and a range of other apps that you might find useful, including proposal apps. So given that we've only got an hour, there's quite a bit to squeeze in. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them just maybe through the Zoom chat function, if you have any. Now, so basically, at the end of this, hopefully you'll be in a better position to get to a situation where you're avoiding this, where you're putting a proposal in front of a business and they've got no idea who you are, what services you offer, you've got no relationship with them. I had a boss many years ago who used to tell me that, if you call someone and ask them out to lunch and they say no, you're not going to win the business. And I mean, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's partly true. You've got to build a relationship with them and you've got to make them aware of who you are and what your capabilities are. So let's talk about how we could do that. So firstly, what makes B2B unique and how does it differ from, say, your standard, consumer sales process? Because often, particularly with digital, when people are telling you what you should be doing or best practice, it's often about selling to consumers. They don't always touch on business to business sales. So one of the key things that makes it different from business to consumer is that there's often multiple decision makers. So, it could be the CEO, or it might be the COO, it might be the CFO. When I say CEO, COO, CFO, people in those positions. So the head of finance, the head of operations, the head of the company. But it could also be people that influence that decision or have a major say in that decision, such as technical specialists and influencers. So unlike business to consumer, where you can advertise a product or a service to someone and they can make the decision right there and then, with business to business sales, it's much more strategic. So you've got to really, touch all of these decision makers and find out where you're positioned in terms of those decision makers. So partly because of that, but also for other reasons like budgetary reasons, or a range of other, if you like, administrative decisions, the sales cycle is going to be a lot longer. It's not about spontaneous purchases. It's about considered cautious type decisions. So a longer sales cycle. Also, the customer themselves or the potential customer, unlike say a consumer situation, they're looking for a longer relationship with their vendor or with their providers. And that's for a range of different reasons, depending on the product. So it's not about a quick sale and out of there. It's about building a long-term relationship with them. Also, potential customers are going to want to know more about your product than they would if they were, say, a consumer purchaser. They need to understand the technicalities of that product and just a more in-depth understanding of how it works or what the solution is that it provides. And like I said before, it's not a spontaneous decision that they're going to make. So, you know, advertising your service on Facebook in the hope that you're going to make a sale from that, depending on your product, of course. I have to generalize somewhat here. You know, you're probably not going to succeed down that path if you're selling to business. So, depending on where your potential customers are or your prospects are in their sales cycle, will depend on a range of different things. So for example, they're looking for different information at various stages of that sales cycle. So we'll go into this a little bit more in a second, but you know, at the very initial stages of that sales cycle, they're really looking to identify their problem and potentially solutions at this early stage. So they're looking for things like, you know, education and thought leadership from potential providers. So that might be how-to guides, information about how other organizations are solving that problem, trends and benchmarks. Whereas when they get more down to the middle of that, if you like, when they're considering potential vendors and business partners, they're looking for solutions and product suitability. So what is your solution and how does that fix their particular problem? And how does it compare to other solutions in the marketplace? And what do they need to be aware of, for example? And how do they decide on the best vendor to choose? So these are all sorts of things they're thinking of at that consideration phase. So the initial phase would be more about awareness. The second stage is more about considering the options out there in the marketplace. And then the third option or the third stage would be the decision phase. So, you know, are you the right organization for them? What are your credentials? You know, who else have you provided solutions for? Maybe some examples of that. And what's your pricing even at this stage? And, you know, how does the relationship work? So often you'll see this represented, particularly in the consumer space, as a funnel. Now, I will show you that funnel in a second, but basically it's about getting information to these prospects, the right sort of information, depending on what stage of their buying process they're in. So if you can think of that as a funnel, the top of the funnel being their awareness phase and the bottom of the funnel being their decision phase. So you've got to get prospects into that funnel or leads into that funnel and provide them information so they can make the decision they need to, hopefully where it ends up you being or them being a customer of you at the end of the process at the bottom of the funnel. So I might refer back to this a couple of times as we go through this because it is quite important. So one of the ways to do that, so one of the ways to get that relevant information to the customer at the right time of their sales cycle is often referred to as inbound marketing. So inbound marketing will use a combination of different tools. Might be content marketing, it could be email marketing, social media marketing, search engine optimization, and advertising. So inbound marketing is really about trying to attract potential prospects out there to your business. And it differs from outbound marketing, which would be along the lines of things that you might traditionally do now, like trade shows, cold calling, you know, print advertising, networking. I'm not saying they don't work, but you probably need to do less of that and more of the inbound marketing. You'll find traditional businesses will tend to do it that way, more heavier focused on outbound marketing and a less of a focus on inbound marketing. And a lot of the experts out there are suggesting that you should do the reverse of that. So a much more heavier focus on inbound marketing. Okay, so we'll try and cover some of these areas in, at a high level because of the limitations we have today. But let me just talk about sales funnels. So this sort of visualizes that process I was just telling you about. So that awareness, the consideration, and the decision phases. So in each of these phases, they're looking at different types of information, as I said. So this, I would suggest that, if you use this funnel approach, it's a great way to understand at which level or which stage your customers are at. And you'll often hear people refer to this, particularly in the marketing space, as the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. Top of the funnel would be leads, middle of the funnel, their prospects, bottom of the funnel, their opportunities, and they convert into customers at the bottom of that. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail now. So just going back to this, so if you think about the top of the funnel, this is here, they're really thinking, what's my problem? How do I find out information about that problem and get some basic research type information? So this is really what we're talking about here. So if they're not in the funnel, they're just prospects, if you like. They're not a lead yet. So you need to make awareness, make those people aware of your particular services and how you can provide a solution to their problem. And once they're in your funnel, they're, I guess, a lead that's yet to be qualified. So let's just think about this top of the funnel. So there's some information there at the bottom there. So what you should be focusing on, and maybe some helpful content that might assist your prospects. So it's about sharing knowledge and information, being that thought leader, and providing this sort of information that's going to help them understand their situation. It's also about building trust and rapport, and gives you the opportunity to qualify that lead. So some of this information might be a little bit too high level in terms of the content here I'm talking about. So infographics and explainer videos, white papers. Not all small businesses have the opportunity or the budget or the resources to do those sorts of things. That's why I thought if I went back to that solution here, really it could be anything. It could be case studies on how other people are solving that particular problem, how-to guides, and just basic education and information about what the rest of the industry is doing. I mean, if you can, explainer videos are great, white papers are great, but we just don't always have the resources to do that. Blogs are fantastic, and we'll talk a little bit more about blogs shortly, how you can use that to build awareness and create awareness in your marketplace. So they've gone into the top of the funnel, they're a lead, you've qualified them. They're now what you consider a prospect, they're a qualified lead. So now it's more about identifying their specific needs, understanding if they're a fit for your particular solution, building relationships with those key stakeholders. So whether it's just an influencer or the final decision maker, that strategic sales approach. So really covering all bases. And, there's some potential information that you could provide to them. So it could be webinars, videos about particular parts of your solution, guides, solution comparisons, that sort of thing. So very important part of the funnel, because you've now qualified that lead, they're now a prospect. So it's really important now that you provide the sort of information they're looking for to enable them to get to the next stage to make that decision, which is the bottom of the funnel. So, at this stage, they're definitely an opportunity, they're a prospect. So this is where you sort of identify, why you're the best solution for them. So highlight your expertise, provide as best support as you can, and just reinforce your capabilities and your experience. So you can do that through case studies, testimonials, comparing yourselves with other organizations, and if depending on your solution or product, maybe an evaluation or a demo, or potentially a meeting if you can't do any of those to demonstrate your solution. And if you do everything right, hopefully they'll come out the bottom as a happy customer that you still need to obviously delight and provide high levels of customer service to. But at the end of the day, you're not going to win all of these leads in your funnel. So it will be a percentage of them. And depending on your product and service and what you're doing, will dictate the actual percentage. So just a reminder once again about inbound marketing. So inbound marketing, getting that relevant content to the right people at the right time, is a combination of a range of different things, and sort of categorized by these here. So content marketing, email marketing, social media marketing, search engine optimization, and advertising. So we are going to briefly touch on some of these. I think really content marketing is sort of built into everything we're talking about here. So whether you're using email or social media or your website or advertising to get that content out to the right people is what we're talking about here. So the first step is to have an online presence. So an online presence is not just a website necessarily. It's about having a presence in all the online, all the digital platforms that are available out there, and that your potential prospects may or may not access and use. And they could include, for example, websites and or search engines, if you like, social media, email, business directories, online articles. It could be blogs. So, it's a whole raft of different platforms that are going to provide that online presence for you. Now, why is that important? Well, for a number of reasons. And just one of those would be some of these statistics here. So, decision makers are now making their decision online. So 9 out of 10 B2B buyers say online content has a moderate to major effect on purchasing decisions. So, that's even a moderate effect is an important effect, but a moderate to major effect on the decisions they make in terms of purchasing and in terms of who they're going to purchase from is something you need to take into account. 84% of CEOs and VPs use social media to make this purchasing decisions. And 67% of buyers' journeys are now done digitally. So this is why you need a strong online presence. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail individually. So one part of an online presence, and arguably the most important, but people could also argue that it's not that the most important, but I would argue it is, because it helps you do, what does a website do? It helps you answer a number of things that these organizations are going to need answers to anyway. So for example, a bit about your brand. So a website helps you build that brand awareness. So for example, just do a simple search here. So widget suppliers in Townsville, and I'm just trying to put you into the shoes of the purchaser, the buying organization. They're going to be doing things like this, doing their research. And if you're not included in the search results, then, it will add a question mark in their head as to why don't you have an online presence? Now that might be easily explained, but it's a great way to build awareness out there in the marketplaces to have a website. But that's just one thing. It's also a way for you to build credibility. If you've got a professional website, it looks good, has all the information on there, good case studies, that sort of thing, then it does build credibility. It builds trust as well, that if you aren't able to build a website professionally, then maybe you're not able to do this particular project as well. So it does build that credibility and trust with the buyer organizations. You can also use websites to demonstrate your capabilities and your experience. Because once again, that's another thing these buying organizations are going to need to know. How experienced are you? Have you done this before? If so, what's your experience? What are the case studies? And this gives you an example to do that. So This is just a website I've taken off the web, and you can see everything about it is really about capabilities and experience. And that's really what particularly your homepage should be about, because that's going to be the most likely page on your website that's going to rank on any given search. So websites are fantastic for brand awareness, building credibility, building trust in buyer organizations, and demonstrating your capabilities and experience. You can, this is a screen recording, so I'm just going to go back a bit here. You can also use it for testimonials. So, I mean, this is a very basic example of a testimonial, but you should have at least 3 good testimonials about your particular service, your particular business, and ideally in similar industries. So you should be going out there trying to find your 3 best customers and asking them if they'll do a really good testimonial for you. And, you know, another thing these buying organizations want to know is, you know, about your team, your skills, your capabilities in-house. So this is also, you know, some of these examples are pretty basic, but it's a good example to show people who is in your team and, you know, why they're good at what they do. So websites are critically important for that sort of thing. And finally, and not just the only thing, but finally, you can use the website to also promote your products and services, as Cleanaway site does pretty effectively here. So these are all things that you're going to, if you're responding to an RFQ, you're responding to an RFP, you're responding to a tender, these are all things you need to have in your kit bag anyway. So they should be on a website somewhere so that these decision makers can, you know, become more aware of what you're able to do for them. So one of the first things you should do, you've got a website, that doesn't mean it's going to get found. So when people are searching for those key terms, those, you know, those solutions to their problem in Google or Bing, you want to make sure that you are found. And that's called SEO, or search engine optimization. Now, search engine optimization is probably the most important foundational thing that you need to do for your website. And the reason for that is because, according to Google, this is a quote from Google, it's the most basic signal that information on your website is relevant to the search that a searcher is typing into, a search term that a person's typing into a search engine. So for example, if you make widgets in Townsville and you don't have widgets in Townsville on your website, then you're not going to show up on any search results. So SEO is pretty important. Now, the great thing about SEO is that it's really something that business owners can do, in my opinion. You're the expert in your business, and SEO is really about getting that information in your head and putting it down onto the website. So let me just explain that quickly. So if you have an SEO goal for your website, it should be this. So you need to think about, and really think about this, maybe spend a couple of hours doing some research and coming up with, well, doing some research and identifying and selectively using a target keyword phrase. So for example, what I mean by that is, well, let me just explain this a bit more. So identify and selectively use a target keyword phrase for each piece of content that you have on your website. So that could be a page, it could be a post, or any products or services, even the About Us page or the Contact Us page. They all need a keyword phrase. Obviously, those About Us and Contact are not critical, but the home page and your services page should have a unique keyword phrase that you're going to use on that particular page or content. And then what you do is you use that keyword phrase to enable you to build context around it. So you can start to build content based on that keyword phrase for that particular piece of content, whether it's a page or a product. Okay, so that's really, really important, because that's telling the search engines what your business is all about, and therefore matching that to people that are searching for your business. So I just want to really show you a really simple example how you might be able to do that. So for example, let's say I'm a mechanic. I'm Tom's Mechanical in Darwin, and I decide I'm going to optimize my page to try and attract more visitors. So I've gone off and I've done some research, and I've identified that car mechanic Darwin is my keyword term I'm going to use. So really what you want to then do is use that keyword within your page structure. So for example, you would use it in the title of your page, ideally in the URL of your page, in the body of your, the body text of your page. It could be the description of your services, for example, and then also as a description of your images as well. So by doing this, you're telling Google that we're all about car mechanical services in Darwin. So when someone's searching for something like that, then you're going to rank because of that. Now, I've also, because I'm a car mechanic, I'm assuming that people might also be looking for roadworthy certificates and brake repair. So I'm also going to add those in there as well. And I'll actually have a link from those to the particular service page for those particular services. Okay, so that's using the keyword, but also variations or associated keyword terms. So that's sort of what you would need to do in a nutshell. I've simplified it dramatically here. You wouldn't go to put your keyword in there multiple times, just a couple of times in the body text, because if you overdo it, it becomes spammy, and Google will then, or Bing will then go, this is a bit sus. I'm going to penalize them by not moving them up the rankings. So just do it in a natural conversational way. So if someone said to you, what do? You would explain to them in a paragraph, and you might use, a few terms a couple of times in that paragraph to explain to the user what you do. Same with Google and Bing and other search engines. So that's really important, because this is how you're going to get found on search engines, which is one of those inbound marketing techniques. Now, so that's SEO, and that's getting found on a search engine. But let's just talk about search engine marketing more, more broadly, because you can do advertising. There's also Google My Business and a range of other things. Now, the reason why this is really important, because unlike other platforms out there, Google users are basically searching for your product. So they're actually searching, maybe not your specific product, but your industry solution or your competitive type products. So they're what you might call a qualified lead right there and then. So to attract them to your website, you've sort of ticked one box already, and that's they're a qualified lead. They're not coming around to kick tires. They're actually interested in what you have to offer. So I just want to show you this very quickly. Sorry, it's a little bit blurry, but I think it gets the message across. So a Google search page, or any search page, but I want to focus on Google here, is split into three areas. So the top area that has ad next to it is an ad. So these people are paying Google to rank when someone types in the word lawyer, for example, which, by the way, I think is the most expensive word to try and rank for in the world. So in that particular case, you would try and add some multiple words to that keyword. So it's not just lawyer, it might be accident lawyer Adelaide, or personal injury lawyer Perth, for example, just as an example. So that's Google Ads, and very powerful when used, well, just very powerful in its own right. But when you use it with these other combinational factors, then it becomes even more powerful. So the second one of those on this page is Google My Business. And you would have seen these, and your business may or may not be listed here already. But if it's not, I would recommend making sure that you've got a Google My Business account, you verified your business, and you start optimizing your listings so that you're on there. So Google My Business will include reviews, your directions to your office if that's relevant, and just information about your website as well. But the fact that you're on there is very powerful. Thirdly, there's SEO, or the organic results. Now, this particular page makes it look like there's only one result, but all organic results, there'll be about 10 per on the home page. So, you want to try and rank in those top 10. Now, if you do everything right and you are ranking in the top 10, you've got your Google My Business profile set up properly, and even potentially doing some advertising. If you think about a potential buyer coming to this website and they see you listed in all these different areas on the on the first page, then that sends a very powerful message to them that these guys know what they're doing, and I need to touch base with them. So that's why Google search marketing does become a very powerful tool, as opposed to, and we'll talk about this shortly, but as opposed to, say, Facebook, where Facebook people are not searching for your product. They're looking through their feed usually, and your ad might come up in their feed, or your post might come up in their feed, but they may not be particularly interested in that at that given moment. They may miss it. It's a range of different possibilities there. Whereas with search engine marketing, you've got a qualified lead looking for your business. Okay, so that's Google search. Now, I did touch on Google My Business. Now, Google My Business, I think the easiest way to find this is either search for your business and it'll come up, which I'll show you in a minute, on a search result, or you can just search for Google My Business, and if you don't have an account, then you should definitely get one, particularly if you're a local business. Google My Business and local marketing particularly helps in your local marketplace. So if you're in Sydney and you're selling to Sydney-siders, then this is a particularly good solution. If you're in Sydney and someone in Perth searches for your solution, these results probably won't show or affect. They may still affect your SEO because they'll increase your SEO because you've got a Google My Business, a verified account, for example, but it wouldn't show up in those local results as I did there, and unless you had a local office in Perth, for example. But it's still very, very important. So Google My Business is particularly important. Like I said, if you're a local business, it's a must. So one of the ways to do that, like I said before, is you search for your business, and it may or may not show up depending, but if it does, you'll often see this, own this business. And if you click on that, you can go through the process of verifying your business. Now, verifying your business is important because it's telling Google that I'm a real business, I'm not a dodgy entity, I'm really here, and it just adds some credibility, if you like. And that's one of the whole reasons behind this, is to verify businesses. Now, once you've got your Google My Business listing, it's a matter of optimizing that by adding your business details. It might be your hours, where you're located and the areas you serve, your phone number, you add your business address there. You can also tell Google that your business doesn't have an address if you are, say, working from home, for example, and you don't want people dropping by there, but it's still something you should look at doing. So yeah, you can post to Google My Business, you can add products to Google My Business, photos, you can also get reviews that you can then add to your website. So it all sort of becomes integrated. Now, the only other thing I can suggest about local business, but also helping with your SEO rankings, would be to look at citation sites. So citation sites are some of those listed here. True Local, Yelp, Local Search, Yellow Pages, and these are all legitimate businesses, and they're about providing business directories for a couple of reasons. One of them is so that people can find businesses locally, and the other is so that businesses can improve their SEO, because one of the most important things about SEO is having people linking to your business. So for example, if you are a beef producer and you are part of an organic beef consortium and you have a link from their website to your website, that's a tick in the box, because that's showing Google that you're obviously in this industry, you're associated with this industry, and these organizations are linking to you. It's a bit like a popularity contest. So that's something you've got to do all the time. And particularly in business, you should be trying to, if you're in any industry association, membership of some organization, a certification body, for example, might have certified you, all your social pages, they should all have links to your business homepage, your website homepage. Okay, so it's quite difficult to do, except with these citation sites. They're relatively easy. You can go to individual ones here and submit your site individually to them. Okay, so that's search engine optimization. I do want to talk briefly about blogs. So blogs are an excellent way to engage an audience. It's also a great way to address certain things. So like questions about, you know, it might be a question from your buyer about a particular solution or a particular problem. You can address that question in a blog. Blogs are generally more wordy than a website. Not just words, by the way, but more wordy. And they're particularly good for lists or answering questions or providing more detailed information than you might otherwise on a website page. But they're also brilliant for ranking on search engines for particular search phrases. And one of the reasons for that is search engines like blogs because blogs are seen as fresh content as opposed to website content that's, you know, potentially it's static sitting there, whereas a blog is fresh. This is why often you'll see blogs ranking fairly highly in search results. So I just want to show you this as an example. It's not the best example for your particular businesses, but if you ever search for a list, so I'm searching for best handbag, for example. So I'm basically asking the search engine to say, what is the best handbag out there? Not a good example, I know, but anyway, so I just want to show you this. So did a search for that. Sorry, a little bit slow. Now, so I just want to show you this because there's a reason why I want to show you this. Every single result on this page is a blog post. There's no web pages here, static web pages. They're all blog posts. So that's why blogs can be very, very powerful. Most platforms nowadays have a blog component to them. WordPress is I guess the original blogging platform, or probably the most successful one. But whether you have a Shopify site or a Wix website or a Weebly, they all have search functionality, blog functionality, which I would recommend taking advantage of. You still need to do that keyword research. So there might be a question, but you should then try and think of a keyword that you can use throughout that result, throughout that blog, that's going to provide the search results that you're looking for. So blogging is very, very key thing that you should probably look at using. Okay, now I'm just going to talk briefly about social media. I won't be talking in a lot of detail about it, but according to, now remember, if you go back to the beginning of the presentation, I talked about inbound marketing and about making people aware of your brand, your capabilities, and that sort of thing. So according to research undertaken a couple of years ago by the Content Marketing Institute, B2B marketers should be focusing on, when they're using social media, there's three areas here. The first one is creating brand awareness. So 86% of B2B marketers are using their social media to create brand awareness. So telling people about who you are, what you do and what you do well, and what you stand for. So that's the highest priority for social media from these marketing, the marketing division of these B2B businesses. Sorry, I'll just go the other way. Secondly, it's about educating audiences. So not just about products and services, but about your internal capabilities. So, what are you able to do? What are your skill sets in terms of your team members? What projects are you working on or have you worked on? And what products and services do you provide? And then finally, it's about building trust. So, testimonials, like I mentioned before, and or case studies, because you might want to build that into more of a case study, maybe reviews that you've received, awards you've received, and milestones you've achieved. So it's a whole range of things that you can do there. You might also intersperse that with a range of other social media content, but the focus should be on these three areas. Now, you also need to do that consistently. So regular, consistent posting to social channels. And those social channels, depending on your business, could be these 5, for example, or it could be others. So I've added blog into there because I see blog as really as a social media channel. It's not specifically, but it's shared by people subscribe to it. So I think it is potentially one that you should put in there. So it doesn't mean that you need to post individually to all of these platforms. You basically talk about one of the tools that you can use. So there are lots of social media tools that you can schedule posts with. Buffer is one of them. It's not the only one. You can use some email marketing platforms allow you to do that. There's Hootsuite as well, which is another one. Even Facebook's Business Manager allows you, or Business Suite allows you to do that. But what it doesn't allow you to do is to do to all of these platforms at the same time. Whereas something like Buffer, I'm telling you about Buffer because they have a free account. As far as I know, they have a free account for 3 profiles. So if you have 3 of these profiles, let's say it's, Facebook, which includes, Instagram would be in addition to that. Facebook, Instagram, and it might be LinkedIn, or it could be Google My Business, for example, are your 3 channels. Anything above that, you'd have to pay for an additional plan. But there are a range of different platforms out there that you can use, post scheduling tools, and it might just be worthwhile doing that. So you can post into the future and set those posts automatically. You can also repurpose content. So just going back to those platforms again, if you had a blog post, for example, you could, or vice versa, you might have a Facebook post, you can repurpose that for a blog post, if you like, make it longer, more detailed, et cetera, et cetera. So you can reuse content, particularly content that in the past has been successful. Doesn't mean that it can't be used again. You can take it out, you can refresh it, maybe add to it, a bit more detail, and post it again. Okay, so that's social media. Just touched on that briefly, although we will also talk about social media when we talk about advertising. So far we've really talked about how you can distribute content out there, so social media, through your website. There are a couple of other options we'll talk about now, but just touching on advertising. So advertising, there's different platforms, as you're aware. Facebook, Instagram, there's LinkedIn, Google, all different platforms. So, where would you use one over the other? So I just want to try and identify those for you here. So Facebook is great as your primary advertising platform if you're primarily selling to consumers. You can definitely use it to promote your business, but maybe not as your primary advertising platform. Although I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it as your primary platform either. It really depends on your individual scenario. Now, Google is fantastic if you want your business or solutions to be searchable. So Facebook posts and pages are not easily searchable. So that's why it would be more and more they are becoming. But at the moment, at this given point in time, if you look at any search results, most of them will be non-social media. So that's why Google is a good platform for advertising if you're looking for businesses or consumers. And the third one I just want to talk about here is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is particularly useful if you're targeting businesses or governments. And particularly if you want to do individual personalized marketing down to individual decision makers, if you like. So let's just briefly touch on these. So firstly, AdWords and Facebook ads. So I mentioned before that really AdWords is, well, it's not called AdWords, by the way, anymore. It's a bit old. Google Ads. So Facebook ads are really, you're targeting people when in most cases you're targeting them based on their behavior or their individual demographics, if you like. It's also, like I said before, often very much a spontaneous decision made on Facebook. Not always, but often. With Google advertising, it's more about keyword search. So it's about their user intent. So why are they searching for that keyword? You know, are they looking for general information? Are they looking for directions using maps? You know, and that's really their intent, where their intent comes in. And then there is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn enables you to do more specific targeting based on job title, based on the company, for example. But one of the interesting stats about LinkedIn is that you've got a heavy weighted presence of decision makers. So a lot of people on LinkedIn are decision makers in one way, shape or form. So if you're targeting to LinkedIn users, you're targeting, if you're advertising to LinkedIn users, you're targeting decision makers. And they have much more buying power than your average social media or web audience buyer. So it's a very important and powerful tool that you can use. Now, like I said before, there are a couple of ways that you can target people within LinkedIn advertising. It can be through company targeting, and there is actually tools that you can use to do more specific targeting within companies. You can do contact targeting, so it might be based on individual job titles within organizations or just individual job titles, for example. And you can do retargeting. So retargeting is when they visited your website, for example, or your social media page, and then you're retargeting them elsewhere. Might be another website, in the case of Google retargeting, or LinkedIn retargeting, or it might be their Facebook feed if it's Facebook retargeting. So I just want to briefly show you, if you're not familiar with LinkedIn. So it does, like it says there, it allows you to reach your ideal customers, the world's largest professional network. So you can really focus your targeting down to individual users. It does, like Facebook, provide you with a business page, and you can then use different types of advertising to target your users, whether it's sponsored content, like a post on Facebook, for example, sponsored email. So this is quite unique to LinkedIn, where you're sending personalized messages to your targets in their inbox. So a very, very powerful tool. And then also text ads, like Google Ads, for example. Now, LinkedIn also comes with a campaign manager, so it makes it fairly easy to achieve what you want to achieve in your advertising. It's relatively straightforward. Sorry, I just had another page there, which is disappearing on me, which is no good. I'm just going to try that one more time. No, it's disappearing on me. So I can't show you that, but essentially it just allows you to do very targeted approach advertising based on various parameters. So one of the ways you can do this too is you can do it through just the advertising setup. But if you've got a professional sales organizer, if you're a professional sales team, if you like, there are tools like Sales Navigator that LinkedIn provide, which is basically allows your sales teams to do a bit more research and target individual users before the fact. So there's no cold calling required necessarily. It allows you to send personalized messages to individuals that you're trying to target anyway. So back in the day when I was in my bid teams or prospect or sales teams, if you like, this would have been a dream of mine to have something like this. And I still can't believe that tools like this are still available. So you should definitely take advantage of tools like Sales Navigator. Now, I've just got some information here about some more information on Sales Navigator as well. So if you go to the LinkedIn page, the Sales Solutions page of LinkedIn, tells you a lot of the information's there, a lot of the information that you might be looking for. It's quite a detailed page here about them. So it just allows you to do a lot of things that we spoke about before. So shortening those sales cycles and connecting with decision makers. It allows you to target the right people. So, you know, very efficient sales process. And, you know, through using LinkedIn Insights, you can understand a lot more about individual users. The great thing about LinkedIn is that the information on there, the data, is very accurate. And unlike, say, Facebook or other social media platforms where that could be a little bit dated, LinkedIn, because it's all about their professional reputation, often LinkedIn profiles are very up to date. Company information is very up to date. So you're using very relevant, up to date information. Now, just want to talk about the LinkedIn sales tool here too. So you can see, I just want to bring this to your attention, just so you know, it does cost to use Sales Navigator, and that would give you 20 emails per month to send to individuals. So this is where you're sending, you know, you can't do it on email because that's spam unless you've got their approval to send them an email. This is before that stage. So you'll be sending them an email into their LinkedIn email box, but they'll also receive an email in their normal email to say, hey, you've got a message waiting for you in LinkedIn. So a very powerful tool. And LinkedIn users aren't silly. They know that these are ads. It says sponsored on them, but you can word it in a way that it becomes very personalized and also seems to, from the user's perspective, as if they're reading a personal email from you, even though you might be sending it to multiple individuals. And you therefore get a response back from them. So this can be very powerful, not just Sales Navigator, but the in-mail messaging can be very powerful if you're looking to generate leads, for example. So it's a very powerful way to ask the decision maker a direct question and therefore to get a lead or not. Okay, so that's LinkedIn, very powerful tool. If you're not using it, then you should maybe just consider, at least start to investigate how you can potentially use LinkedIn to grow your business. So I just want to briefly touch on retargeting. We're sort of running out of time here, but you know, one of the things about websites is that unlike, say, a store or an office where you have people coming past all the time and potentially dropping by again, once someone leaves your website without doing anything, there is a possibility that they may not come back again. So you can retarget individuals that visit your website. So retargeting, I touched on that briefly. I'm talking about advertising retargeting. You can do retargeting on email as well, but advertising is where they're on your website, they look at, say, a product or a service, and then they go elsewhere. You can then display an ad to them on another website about that particular service. If it's Facebook retargeting, you can do the same, but in their Facebook feed or in Messenger, for example. So it's quite powerful functionality. And the way it works essentially is that it uses cookies. So when someone comes to your site, you know, the cookie will, you know, take that into account. When they visit another site, you can then retarget them with advertising for that particular product or service. So very powerful tool as well. You can also do this with email, but with email, they need to already be on your list. They need to be a subscriber to your email list. Whereas with this type of retargeting, they could be ideally you know, potentially a complete stranger. So retargeting, a very powerful feature of advertising. Having problems with my email marketing here for some reason. Yeah, so look, I just want to briefly touch on email marketing. I'm having problems with my slides. I'm not sure why, but email marketing is also something that's very powerful. Some people think of it as that old-fashioned tool that only sends out newsletters, but it's much more sophisticated than that. And on top of that, it's going to provide you the highest return on your investment of any of the marketing platforms out there. In fact, it will provide a higher return than many of them combined. So you should look at, one, using email marketing, and two, building an email marketing list. And the reason for that is, like I said, it's a very powerful tool that you can use. You can do really personalized, segmented email marketing, or very segmented, personalized marketing to people that are on your list. So you can do it based on a range of different criteria. So I just want to briefly show you that. Now, this is a B2C type client that sells fashion, but just the same sort of concept. So in most email marketing platforms now, whether it's MailChimp or in this case, this is Klaviyo, it allows you to build lists and create segments. So a segment would be a subsection of that list that you've segmented for certain reasons, to market to them individually as an individual group based on their common criteria. So I'm just going to create one now just to show you how easy it is. So this is a test list. Now this, like I said, it is based on an e-commerce site, but what you're able to do is build a list or a segment based on a range of different parameters: who the person is, where they're located, what they've done or haven't done. So we're going to choose what they've done or haven't done. And in this case, you can choose a range of different parameters. These are Klaviyo parameters or different API parameters, or in this case, Shopify. So I'm going to choose a particular Shopify one here. So for example, I can choose everyone on this list that has ordered a particular product, and to make them say regular purchases, I'm going to say they must have purchased this product at least, say, 3 times over all time. So in my business, that's a regular, consistent buyer. Now I can add filters to that. So I can say I want to be specific about that product. So when they've purchased, say, in this case, I'm going to add, just showing you the different options here. But if I add product ID, I can add a specific product there. So in that case, I've developed a segment that has purchased just one product a couple of times, a few times. So they're a regular purchaser of that product. Now, rather than send an email out to all of my people on my email list, some of which the information might be irrelevant to, I can send an email to this particular list and be specific about that particular product that they've purchased, for example. So it's very personalized, it's in their name, and you know, you can see very detailed results about who's opening your mail, who's not, etc. So email marketing is a fantastic form of doing that inbound marketing, sending information to the right people at the right time. And one of the ways you do that is to firstly segment your audience, and then you do some automations. So all email marketing now platforms have automations. Most of the good ones have automations built into them. Automations are really, as the name implies, are a way to automate email sending so that you can free up your time to do what you need to do, but also provide that level of support to people that are asking for information. So you're looking professional. So you can build automations based on a range of things. It can be based on, well, 3 things essentially. One is based on something they've done, so their behavior. They have to be on your list, but so they might have purchased something, or in this case, not purchased something. So that's an abandoned cart would be an example of a behavior-based trigger. And it would then send an email or an SMS automatically. Another way to do it is based on segments, like I was just saying. So if you have a segment, particular segment, you can send them content automatically based on certain things. So, you know, they've purchased these products, you can then send them information about those particular products, for example. Or finally, it could be date-based. So this might have some relevance for some of you. This is particularly good if you have a product that requires constant refills or updates or stock replenishments, that sort of thing. So they can be added to a list when after a certain number of days, you send them an email to say, hey, it's time to update, time to refill, whatever the case may be. So that's why email marketing can be very powerful for small businesses. Now, I know I'm running a little bit late, so I'm just going to quickly run through a couple of things here. I will just show you this here. So these are some of the flows that automations that Klaviyo has. And I'm just going to flick through some of these here just to show you some here. So these are flows that are built into Klaviyo, and most website platforms or email marketing platforms will have these. So depending on what you're trying to do, what type of email you're trying to send them, it could be anything. Abandoned cart reminder, when something's back in stock, when shipping is confirmed, etc. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. So a lot of people use, I'm showing you Klaviyo here. A lot of people will use MailChimp because it's a free platform. And so I'm just showing you here some of the, well, a lot of these email platforms have free plans. So MailChimp isn't free. It just has a free starter plan. And these are some of the automations you can use here. So it might be educating subscribers in a series of emails about your products or services, or it might be that they've purchased a particular product, or some of your best customers, keeping them up to date, something about an event that you might be organizing. So although the automations here are a little bit more limited than some of the other ones, it's still something that you should definitely take advantage of. Okay, so that's briefly really what I wanted to talk about, but I do want to touch on some apps that you might find useful to assist you in winning business. One of them are proposal apps. You may or may not know about these. So rather than writing proposals from scratch every time, you can actually use proposal apps to build proposals for you. So there's a bunch of them out there. PandaDocs is probably one of the leading ones. There's also Proposify, and there's also Better Proposals. Now, I'm not sure if Cyber Monday is still relevant, but some of these do have Cyber Monday deals relevant right now, so with discounts available, but they just allow you to easily send out proposals in a template form without having to reinvent the wheel every time. Now, that's not to say you should use this necessarily to respond to tenders, because as you may or may not know, tenders and RFPs and RFQs will often say, you must respond in this format. It must be a Word document or whatever. So just be careful that you're not using these in the wrong way and therefore losing particular proposals. So as you can see, they do, depending on the different app, they'll support a range of different industries, including this one, which is about leasing construction equipment. So as you can see, quite detailed, allows you to just edit that and change it. So they're proposal apps. There are also a range of project and process tools that might be of interest to you. So these are really tools that maybe started off as project management tools, but now have become more whole of business tools that you can use for meetings, for developing processes, workflows, project management, lead management, a range of different features that you can use it for. So Monday is one of those. I won't go into too much detail here. In fact, one of our business advisors does a whole webinar on Monday. But just really what I think of Monday as is a tool that sort of integrates all your other tools, Gmail, Facebook, etc., into one sort of platform that you can use to sort of control your business in a little bit more centralized way. There's also Asana. So for example, Business Station uses Asana to manage a lot of our business. I use it every day. So it is quite a useful tool for managing workflows and that sort of thing. There's also things like ClickUp. So ClickUp is another tool that allows you to integrate different apps and then use them in different ways. So in a marketing role or sales, could be in operations, a range of different ways that you can use these project tools. And sorry, if I didn't mention that, that one was ClickUp. So I haven't touched on e-commerce here on purpose because, business to business can be slightly different. So it's, although e-commerce can still be relevant, it might be slightly different because the customer is going to be invoiced, for example. There's a range of differences between the consumer and the consumer type customer and the business type customer. But it does allow you to promote your products and services very, very easily, and for those to be found on search results. It also enables you to, if your customer does want to order electronically, you can do that. And you can have, if you have other customers coming onto your website, you can have, for example, with Woocommerce, you can have pricing based on user roles. So your business buyers would have to be classified as particular users, say business users. And by doing that, you would then give them access to different types of pricing, say wholesale pricing or business pricing, for example. So you can use, doesn't matter what type of product you have. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It can be a virtual product, a service. It can be a product that you need to book, retail, wholesale, really a combination of all of those. You can do this on e-commerce. So I just wanted to touch briefly on that, that e-commerce still has a place in the business to business world. So that's it for me. Thanks very much for joining, everyone. Hopefully that was of value to you. I just want to talk, for those that aren't aware of the Business Station digital solutions platform, this is what I deliver in my day job. And if you are interested in that, you can maybe visit businessstation.com.au and find out more information, or to register, you can go to businessstation.link/register. Now, that's basically it. So I do thank you for your time. If you have any questions, happy for you to either email me at ricky@businessstation.com.au, or you can briefly, if you've got time, to put a chat in the question area of Zoom. Otherwise, I thank you all very much for your time. You should receive a recording of this since you did come along today, or even if you didn't manage to sit through the whole session, someone should be emailing you a copy of this. If you don't receive a copy of it, or you're after some additional information, just send me an email. Be happy to help out. So that's Ricky@businessstation, 3 S's, at businessstation.com.au. Now, there is a question here. Oh, it's just Kate saying thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And hopefully you all found some value out of even just a small part of this. And good luck with everything. I hope you all do very well in your business to business sales. What are the best platforms for coaches? Now, that's interesting. Now, I'm not necessarily a good coach. I'm a business to business person, I guess, but I don't know. If you're talking about coaches in terms of providing online courses and that sort of thing, maybe what I can do, Nadia, is go and find some information, because in fact, there's Kajabi and WordPress, for example, through the plugins. They have a lot of different platforms available. There's Thinkific, for example. I can't say that word. And there was another platform that was introduced to me yesterday, and I found it very, very good. So maybe if I can just get your email, you're probably on the list here of people that subscribed, and I can send that to you. If anyone else is interested, I'll be happy to do that in terms of coaching and online course type information. I'm guessing if that's what you're after. No worries, Nadia. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.